Hey everyone, it's Robin D. Groot with TLC, Truth, Love, Creativity. And this is a video that I have wanted to do for a very long time. And audio, basically a post that I have wanted to do for a long time. And I don't know why I didn't, but I did finally have all the examples and materials that I wanted to show while I do this. Now, just as a warning, before anyone goes any further, I don't know if this is triggering to anyone or too much information. So as a TMI type of thing, it is about periods and menstruation and all of that stuff. So if this is somehow something you don't want to know anything about or whatever, that's totally fine. Then I suggest you don't really listen or watch this video. Now for anyone else, let's go full steam ahead. Now I am always in the business of looking for least toxicity in my environment, in my products, and things that I will use, especially on my skin or something that is somewhat internal. And I come from a background where I had no great options when I was younger, and I believe that, especially like with birth control and all that, because I had really strange anomalies going on with my hormones. So I was developing too early and things were making me gain weight and growth was odd and puberty was too early and like lots of things were happening that were not really explained, which I did learn later that had some base in a pituitary tumor, and pituitary gland rules growth, and it rules many functions that have to do with all the other glands. So in general, I didn't use birth control. I would use all these, always like a prophylactic or something external or whatever. And the same went for menstruation, which was late actually, because I eventually stopped eating any foods with hormones and all kinds of things to try to keep this at a more regular time. And then eventually I was like 16 when I actually got my period, which was fine. And I've actually been really, really lucky and great. I'm grateful that I have no real problems, not big pain. And I've always tried to use some pretty good products as far as I knew them to be. So even not using things with bleach or plastics as much as we could, even when I was younger, that was already going on in my family, a big part due to my mother, who was very ahead of her time, having to do with holistic things and natural things and trying to be really pure in your environment and your products. So let me start with some of the pads that are out there. I know that seems really archaic and like, who uses pads anymore? Well, I feel like everyone probably does in conjunction with other things. And a part of maybe why I do and some other people do and maybe some other people don't is because I do have heavy periods. So at some point in the cycle, usually the first few days, for me it's quite heavy. So I'm gonna need pad backup, and especially at night, there's a whole nother situation going on. So I'm gonna show some of the things that I use and then at different times in the cycle. And then later, I'm going to go into a bit of the sustainability aspect, which has always been a part of my concern and thoughts, even though it's not overwhelmingly important. But I think nowadays, especially, we're on the day before the US election, 2020. This is November 2nd, and there seems to be another toilet paper shortage raid happening in the grocery stores, and that already happened earlier in the year. So I don't know if people talk about it much, but when all the paper products start going away, do people think about menstrual pads and menstruation products. So that is something that it's good to be set up a little bit sustainably. If you're buying a bidet and type of things like that for the toilet paper issue, then you should also think about some sustainable options for menstruation. So here is a very light type of thing, and this is the Nature Care. These ones are liners, but they're kind of wider, so they're made to be covering a little more, even though they're light. So when you're getting to a light point, probably near the end of the cycle or maybe the first day, these are really good. Nature Care has always been in Whole Foods for a long time, and now I think I got it in Sprouts. Now, as for Canada, I'm not sure. Certain things should be in Whole Foods the same. I don't know if they have a Sprouts. But they'll have certain natural stores, and probably some of these products will coincide. And then some of them will be in drugstores. So I'll show you those too. And there's been a line that I've been using more lately. And this is in Target, actually. This one is L. And these ones are also donating for every package you're buying. They're also donating to communities in other countries, especially developing countries, to girls, young women, and any woman who doesn't have good products, and they don't even end up going to school when they're on their period. So those kind of things, I like those programs, and especially they're not using chlorine. This is the night one. I guess I can show you what some of these look like out of the package. Here, let me go back to the first one. So the first one was this, and that was like kind of a wider, bigger one. But they're often cotton with no bleaching going on. And they're starting to use some better biodegradable things in the plastics. Now this one's just a regular one. Their plastic so far is just probably regular plastic, but the pad itself doesn't have as much plastic. And maybe this one I'll open. So this one's like a regular size. It's not a long one, but they're wider, and they all have the wings if you want the wings and all of that. So that's actually really good. That's been better for coverage. And I have a blue version, which I think was the longer one of that L company. Now I was going to show you that one again. So this is the overnight one. It's pretty, I mean, they're not so thick these days in general because they've gotten better at that. So that's pretty good. But the fun part about these ones is the coverage, which to me, it just makes me be able to sleep, because if I'm worried about not moving and stuff, to not make a mess in my bed, then it's annoying. So this one's pretty exciting. So this is very long. At this part, there's wings here, which goes to the front part of your underpants or whatever. And then this part opens up with another kind of a wing at the back that really flares out and completely goes along the back of your underwear. And it's very long, so you can lay on your back and it's just gonna be caught for the most part. There still can be leaking if you're as heavy as I am. And that heaviness could still just be remnants of my own hormone journey, which is always a little more interesting than people with pretty normal running hormones over their life. So those are the L overnight ones, which are really pretty exciting. And there's another company that has a similar one for the overnight in the way that it's large and long. And this is Real. Now this one has already a better cover packaging. So they're starting to use, it might be rayon, it might be some biodegradable stuff. I don't have the box for this one, but they're starting to work on their use of less plastic. So that's a good thing. Or using soy as part of the plastics, which I'm not super keen on soy for the estrogen effects, but those things, when they're used in products, they can be biodegradable, and those are good things. If the plastic part is not what's against your skin, then that's already helpful. Now this one is Cora, which has that freaky little stuff again, which is kind of like rayon, I think, as their packaging. And they're a lot like the regular ones of L so far, but the cover, this one is super thin, so thin, which is fine if it absorbs enough. But the cover of this particular one was a little bit rayon-y. It's supposed to trap the moisture and keep it all under. But I don't really like those kind of covers because for me, they react a little bit with me and then you might get odor or whatever, I don't know. So that one's okay. I definitely don't want any deodorant ones because they're using usually a perfume type of thing. If it was actually somehow with baking soda, which is an odor remover, that's okay. But I usually just don't want any of those things because to me they smell super strange and they smell more strange when they interact with your body functions. And what else? I have, again, Cora. I like their liners. So the liners are thin and they're pretty cool so far. They might have actually changed some of the formula for the top layer and have more options of those. They also have some pretty good tampons, and they are not having a plastic applicator as far as I know, or if they are, trying to use those special different biodegradable materials. This one looks a little bit more like a OB tampon, which doesn't even have an applicator because you can just keep it. It's so small, you use your finger, I guess. But a lot of people still like an applicator for tampons because it helps you to put it in. So this one, they've made a collapsible applicator, and it's made of this more biodegradable stuff, but I have to research that. So it's collapsible within itself, so it actually can be small. So it's not super long. And in general, I don't use tampons. I have never really used them. And I'll tell you the reasons why and what I use instead. This is the L. This is part of they have a big circular container with a mixed pack. This one is one of the smaller ones for light flow. It's similar to the other one where it's small collapsible applicator. Oh, these were the other L. These are the longer ones. Some of them had a blue wrapper. I don't know if they still have a blue one anymore, but you just have to know if you're getting the longer ones, even though it's for a medium flow. So they have the white ones and blue ones, but depends on the package you bought them from. And now, this is another company I've been buying some things from, and this is Public Goods. So they're a very sustainable company trying to cut out the middleman, and it's all online ordering. Now their pad definitely was used with bamboo and a corn-based top sheet, so that's interesting. They're also trying to keep things biodegradable, only biodegradable plastics and sustainable materials. So and I like theirs too. Depends on if they were out of stock. Currently, certain companies are losing stock with paper products, whatever they're used for. And I don't think it's as bad right now, but in case it does get bad, then it might be good to start thinking of ways to prepare. Oh, and this was the Nature Care one, which I had showed you the liners, and these are some of their pads. Their covering here just feels like paper, cotton. So they're really continuing on, and they've been one of the earliest ones that I ever saw many years ago that was already in stores. So they've continued their development of pretty good products. Now, when I was saying I don't use tampons, and part of it is because I didn't find they worked very well, and maybe it's because I had this heavy cycle, and I'd have to change them quite often. So already when I was in my teens, my mom discovered the soft cup. And this is the old box, actually. So this is one of the old sets, the original design and everything. Maybe the writing is already a little updated. So this one was a permanent one I had ordered. They consider it more like you're not supposed to throw all these away. Now, I don't throw them away. So these last me a really long time because I use them, I wash them in between uses, and I kind of sterilize them. I use hydrogen peroxide water down, and things like that. So they're very similar. This one's open. So this one is one of the original designs. It's a bit more of a rubbery latex, and the ring is about the same. So the rubbery latex might be why it's a little long-term use. But the new ones are more of a thin latex, I guess, if they're even latex. I'd have to read it. But they are, let me not use this set. I'll show you the new set. So the new set is this is the updated box and updated materials. So I open this. It's a little thinner and probably a little more comfortable, but in general, so this one looks a little more like and it's got this tiny little hex design in it. So I think they're just getting smarter about how it expands or if it needs to expand. So with these, you squeeze them like this and you'll put them in like a tampon, and then they pop open over the cervix. And they will collect the menstrual blood, and then after a few hours or whatever, you kind of pull it out with your finger and you dump it and you can clean it. And they say throw it out. But I'm kind of like, if you're doing that like 12 times a day on heavy days, I don't use a whole box in one day. I clean it and use it again. And I just recommend you do what you feel the most comfortable with. Don't use me as any medical advice, because that is not a good idea. I'm not a doctor. I'm telling you my experience and what I've done over the years. And I've never had issues with toxic shock syndrome or anything like that, because I'm washing entirely between all those cleanings. And I wash with this, which is another company that I really recommend, which I find in Target, but you can also order it on Amazon or whatever. This honey pot thing is made with, there's some apple cider vinegar, there's some colloidal ionized silver, I think, and that's an updated version of it. But they have very good ingredients that create the slightly acidic pH, which is what you actually need to be pH balanced. Your skin, your hair, and your vajayjay needs to be slightly acidic. No alkaline situation going on there, or it's gonna have issues. And when you have, if you've got something going on with yeast or whatever, you need to wash more, and you need to keep the pH, the right pH. So I've used these cups from into the 90s, and I don't know if they were even around before that. I'm gonna start losing room, but that's okay. Now, a more recent company is Flex. So you can find these in Target as well, in most of the CVS and Walgreens and all those things. You find these. I think you still find Soft Cup. First, these were order only online. same ring, same concept. They're quite similar in my opinion. And it says similar instruction, and then you could throw them out, or if you think you can use them more, I think they have those options too. So this one has a black ring, which can be better when it's looking like it's used or whatever, but I don't know. I don't think any of that is very different. It's a tiny or slightly smaller ring, possibly, like slightly smaller on that width part, which could feel a little bit more connected. I don't know. To me, they're always a little leaky first few days because I have such a heavy flow. And when you have to go to the restroom in number 2, these start to leak. Hence, the pads as a backup. And I think the same thing happens with me with tampons. So even if I'm changing them and I'm trying to have it be ahead of the curve with how many I'm going to use and how much I'm going to change and whatever, first few days there's going to need to be a backup situation. Now, the one other thing which is pretty good and cool with these is that supposedly with the cups you could have sex with them. Now, there will still have to be a okayness between a couple because you'll probably have some accidents, especially if it's the first few days and it's a heavier day. But there's no string, there's nothing actually in the vaginal canal. That is open until the cervix, which is, it's like basically using a diaphragm. So that to me is kind of a big plus about those. Now, some people think, especially in that situation, that they feel it and they can feel this ring, right? Or the end of it. So then we get to a new option, which is sponges. And there used to be I forget what the sponge is called, but there's a Seinfeld episode about this sponge and it's pretty hilarious because they stopped making them at some point. And the sponge it was a spermicidal sponge. So that one had spermicide in it, which I wouldn't have used because I don't recommend having a spermicide in the mix if you are someone with any hormone sensitivities. So I was going to show you this one. I actually ordered these from the UK. So the box got a little squash when they were sending it to me. These are the little packages inside, and they say Gynotex soft tampons. So these are these little sponges, and when they're wet, then they become a bit like a disc and they absorb. So when they're slightly damp, then they start to absorb. And there's another company called Bepi, which is similar, except it has a little bit more of a shape to it. So Bepi came in their other box too, also from the UK. And I just ordered a few of these just to see what was around in the sponge world, because I don't know why the US and North America had never really gone too far into the sponge world. So this one is even a little more form-fitting to the cervix. So that's very interesting as well. So then you use this in place of a tampon, and again, when you take them out, you wash them and you can continue to use them. Now, before I even discovered those, what I did is I went to a drugstore, and in the drugstore you can find a sea sponge, a big kind of sea sponge that hangs from a rope, and you can put in your shower, and you can use it instead of a loofah or as well as a loofah. But these are actually natural sponges from the sea, and I cut out all these different shapes and sizes of my own little sponges long before I ever ordered those ones from the UK. And they work quite well. They work better for me on the light days, but they're also not uncomfortable, and they can also help me at times when I add them on the heavy days inside the cup. Let me show you that. I guess I had opened this one. Let me show you that. So sometimes when there's a lot going on in there, I actually put this inside there, and it will help with the leaking. So this will absorb a bit while this is in. And you can still just squeeze it in and put it in like you normally would. So that is pretty cool that all of these innovations are somehow available to us. Okay, now from other things, oh yeah. So all of these companies doing a natural version of things, trying to use better materials for your body, no more chlorine bleach, has actually inspired the market of one of the big companies that have always been there. I don't know if they're as old as Kotex, but this is Always, unless they're owned by Kotex. I'd have to check it out. But anyway, now Always has a pure cotton one, and they're starting to use free from dyes, fragrances, and chlorine bleach. So to me, this is the greatest thing about innovation, competition, is that it inspires the market to start to make some better products just to compete, because people are looking for something more healthy and things that are more sustainable. So the rings to me are more sustainable because they can be used over and over and for many cycles. And if you have one box of these, they could last you many decades, I feel. Now, before I had made the sea sponge, I know people who use a makeup sponge. So if they're free of any toxic thing, this one is made out of cellulose. So I want the natural product ones. I don't want a synthetic one if I can help it, for the sponges, because I don't want them to come apart and whatever. So this is a makeup tool, and that's an option. But they're pretty dense, so I don't know how well they absorb, actually. So that is one thing. Now, this is something that many people know about now and have been using, that I tried, but I never really got into it. And that's the Diva Cup. So the Diva Cup looks like this. Again, you put it in, and it goes towards the cervix, but then it's definitely in the canal, and it has this pokey thing that you can pull out. You can actually trim this too if you don't need that much. But to me, because I was used to the ring or the disc, and it's actually further in and it's at your cervix, then I don't think that this is as good. Maybe it's less leaky, but I actually could feel it still, and I maybe not putting it back as far enough, but I don't really like that there's this obtrusive thing there. But I could also try use it more, get better with it, and hopefully have more success. I've got a few different sizes too, because they have different sizes, which I'm not sure how to tell about the sizing except for trying it yourself. So then, in thinking about the Diva Cup, which is a sustainable cup that you use over and over again, you clean it, then I thought, hey, what about the ring? Instead of being in a container of 14 and a box that is told that you should maybe be throwing them away, I don't know. I didn't want to have any doubt, so I wondered if there was a permanent disc ring type of situation. And I did find that. And this one is called the Ziggy Cup. This is the package it was in. And this is how it comes. So it's in this very silky silicone little container that you open up, and then the disc is in there. So this one is pretty heavy duty. Again, it has a hex design in there, but this one is like bigger than the other one. Can you see that there? Maybe. So if you see the light going through it. So this ring part is a little bit different. It's got like a double ring kind of, and partly because it has to hang on to this other part. And it's slightly wider than in this, how thick that thing is. It's not really thick. The thinness is not bad, but. So this is pretty neat as well. And I find it's quite similar to the other two, the soft cup and the flex one. Except that you're known to be able to use this over and over and permanently wash it in all your disinfectant materials. I often use the pH stuff at the end so that I know that it could have been cleaned with that as the final thing. So to me, those are part of the sustainability factor. That if you don't want to be buying and throwing away paper products, then only, as in tampons, then some of those things will be a better choice. Now, I haven't quite addressed the pads as a sustainable option, but there are options because that's been going on for a long time as well. Just like when I had my children, my first daughter, I used cloth diapers actually, and sometimes people have a cloth diaper service so that it's actually manageable. I wasn't working in the first year with my daughter being born, so I was at home and I could actually do the cloth diaper thing, and I thought it was really nice to be able to do that. But when I was in university already before that, I was using cloth pads. So this is a whole special thing, which definitely becomes the most sustainable. It's not necessarily the most convenient or the most practical a lot of times. But what you do is you have this snap situation, and this has got some kind of a plastic inside so that it won't leak through the cotton and get to your underwear. And this is a flannel, so it's very soft. And then these snap onto your underwear and you have this sustainable cloth pad. And when you need to change them, if you're out and about, then they give you a waterproof bag to put in it. And it's got a different pocket in the front so you could keep the dry ones, and then you can put the wet ones in here and you take them home. So I bought a set. This was a long one. They have 3 sizes in this set. The long, the medium, with all these pretty fun designs, and the small ones. Now my only, my only criticism would be that they can shift on your underwear because they're not stuck on it. So sometimes they'll shift depending on where you're sitting or if you're walking, and then it's missing the part that you might be leaking at. But I still think they're a really great option, and if you just want to wear the long ones all the time, then you're probably pretty good. So I actually have amassed all of these different things over time. Some of them I was saving because I wanted to do this post for quite a long time. Not sure why I didn't. It's gonna be, I knew it was gonna be long in some way, but that's okay. And it's kind of funny that I am a little obsessive about all of this because it's something that's going to be a pretty big part of most women's lives. For me, because I've been in a natural lifestyle business for quite a while now, and even growing up, which led to me being in that business, I already had to consider those things. And I didn't have to, but it came to my attention, and part of it really helped me. So now I really have pretty regular cycles. They're not super long or super short. And the first couple days are heavy, then it gets lighter, and all of these things work fine. So things are good. And I know people who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they have their own issues, whether they have periods or not, or they all of a sudden have too many eggs released. And there are other issues with whether you can become pregnant or not if you want to. So I actually have a lot of empathy for people who have issues with the period, because it's such a big part of our lives, and it's such a big part of being able to have children if we want. Then it becomes unfortunate if you have pain and you can't figure that out, and then some of the products may be contributing to toxicity. All of those things are unnecessary in my belief. So I hope that some of these ideas helped you, and if you have any questions or want to know about any of these products, or if you have any ideas about products that are even newer and more exciting and or something similar, and you'd like to send me a message and have my thoughts, I would love to hear from you. So yeah, as a reminder, there's the discs, there's the Diva Cup, there's a lot of different healthy pad products that are now using no chlorine bleach, no dyes, no fragrance. They're trying to be more sustainable with the plastics. And there are cloth pads, and there are healthier washes now to keep the pH on the slightly acidic side of the pH scale. And there's sponges. Sponges are good too. So enjoy, everyone, and let me know what you think. Thank you.